The first rule was older than recorded spaceflight, older than the Council itself. It wasn't written into law or carved into monuments. It was passed quietly between species that survived long enough to learn fear. Don't touch the humans. Observe, negotiate, trade if necessary, but never test them. Curiosity killed civilizations far more advanced than ours. They broke it anyway. The Council called humanity a developing species, technically capable, socially fragmented, emotionally volatile. A risk, but a manageable one. Their homeworld was harsh, yes, but so were many. High gravity, aggressive ecosystems, unstable climate cycles, nothing the galaxy hadn't cataloged before. Death worlds produced survivors, not conquerors. That was doctrine. I was present when the decision was made. A border dispute, a mining incident, a human convoy that refused inspection and escaped into jump space. The Council demanded a response, something firm enough to reassert authority without escalation. Limited force. Precision. A lesson. They sent a task group, not an army. The first human ship disabled was civilian-rated, lightly armed. Its destruction was broadcast as proof of resolve. The Council chamber applauded politely. I remember thinking the humans would protest, file grievances, demand reparations. That's what compliant species did. Instead, Earth went silent. No threats. No outrage. No mobilization signals we could detect. Human networks darkened one by one, replaced with static that looked accidental until analysts realized it was intentional. Information denial. Perfected. Weeks passed. The Council congratulated itself on restraint. Then the second rule activated. The task group disappeared near human space. No distress call. No debris. Just absence, like a sentence cut short. Probes sent to investigate returned corrupted, their data scrambled into recursive loops that led nowhere. Admirals argued malfunction. Engineers blamed human sabotage. No one said the word they were thinking. Predation. A larger fleet was authorized, this time with reconnaissance superiority. They crossed into human territory under Council mandate, transponders blazing, weapons hot but unused. They expected resistance. They found preparation. Human space was no longer empty. Stations that hadn't existed months earlier now orbited dead worlds, cold and quiet. Traffic patterns suggested civilian evacuation, but not panic. Everything was too orderly, too deliberate, as if humanity had decided something and the decision was already finished. The first shots came without warning, not from ships but from space itself. Regions folded, distances lied, vectors collapsed. Council vessels slammed into each other as navigation failed catastrophically. Humans struck surgically, disabling drives, power cores, life support. They avoided killing blows at first. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. Boarding actions followed. Humans in pressure armor, faces hidden, movements efficient and merciless. They fought like people who had practiced this exact scenario endlessly. Every corridor became a trap. Every surrender signal was ignored until weapons were secured and crews restrained. I watched from a secure feed as a human commander addressed a captured admiral. "You touched us," she said. Her voice was steady, almost regretful. That was the mistake. The fleet never returned. The Council tried to contain the incident, classify it, minimize fallout. But rumors spread faster than censorship. Fringe species began rerouting trade away from human-adjacent space. Old treaties were re-examined. Archives were opened. The first rule resurfaced, whispered again in fearful corners. Humanity broke its silence at last. One message, broadcast on every frequency, translated perfectly into every known language. "We are not hostile," it said. "We are reactive. Remember the difference." The galaxy did, but remembering came too late for those who had already paid the price. Reaction is a word the galaxy misunderstood. We thought it meant retaliation. We learned it meant inevitability. The Council convened in emergency session 3 days after the broadcast. Attendance was mandatory. Absences were noted as potential defections. I sat in my assigned tier, surrounded by species who had spent centuries believing rules were something you imposed, not something you survived. Human space was reclassified as a hazard zone. Not hostile, not forbidden. Hazardous, like radiation or gravity wells. A semantic shield meant to calm markets and allies alike. It failed instantly. Trade guilds rerouted without waiting for authorization. Explorers filed sudden retirements. Entire cultures rewrote their star maps with empty voids where human systems had been. The council debated punishment. Sanctions were proposed, then dismissed when no one could agree how to enforce them. Embargoes followed, quietly dropped when analysts pointed out humanity was already self-sufficient. Military escalation lingered as an option, hovering at the edge of every conversation like a loaded weapon no one wanted to touch. That hesitation became the problem. Humanity did not escalate. They did not pursue. They withdrew their forces to defensive postures and waited. That waiting unnerved everyone more than open war ever could. It suggested confidence. Worse, it suggested preparation for something else. Reports trickled in from border systems. Automated defense platforms appeared near human space, not threatening, just present. Human fleets ran drills that emphasized withdrawal and counter-encirclement, never pursuit. Their military doctrine, once fragmented, had unified around a single principle: deny access, control consequence. I requested access to deeper intelligence. It was denied. Survivor guilt made me inconvenient again. Then the council made its second mistake. A covert operation. Limited scope. Plausible deniability. The goal was information, not confrontation. Insert observation assets into human space, map their new defenses, confirm whether their response capability matched the fear it generated. The insertion team never reached its target. Human security intercepted them mid-jump, a maneuver considered impossible under known physics. Their vessel was not destroyed. It was redirected, returned to council space intact, crew alive, memories altered with surgical precision. They remembered entering human space. They did not remember leaving. Psych scans revealed something worse than trauma. Understanding. The operatives spoke with reverence, not fear. They described humans as constrained, disciplined, burdened. A species holding itself back not because it couldn't do more, but because it chose not to. That narrative terrified the council. A formal ultimatum was drafted. Withdraw all human military assets beyond designated systems. Submit to oversight. Accept consequences for unauthorized aggression. The language was firm, elegant, and completely detached from reality. Humanity responded within minutes. "We will not be managed," the message said. "We will not expand. We will not submit. Interfere again, and reaction will become correction." The word correction echoed through every chamber. Behind the scenes, something shifted. Old data sets resurfaced. Historical incidents once dismissed as anomalies were re-examined. Lost expeditions. Silent systems. Patterns pointing, inexorably, toward moments where humans had been involved indirectly, quietly, decisively. They had been reacting for centuries. We just hadn't noticed because survival looks like coincidence when you don't know what to look for. The council fractured. Some species argued for appeasement, others for preemptive strike, most for delay. Delay won, as it always does when fear lacks focus. No vote was taken. No orders given. Humanity noticed. Their borders hardened further. Communication narrowed to single-channel, monitored exchanges. Cultural exports ceased. Diplomacy became procedural, stripped of warmth. The message was clear. Humanity was done explaining itself. I began receiving private messages. Questions from other species. What were humans really capable of? What did they want? How far would they go? I had only one honest answer. As far as necessary. The first rule had been broken once. The price had been paid locally. The galaxy still believed it had time to renegotiate the terms. It did not understand that humans were no longer reacting to an incident. They were reacting to a pattern. And patterns, once recognized, are never ignored again. Patterns demand closure. Humans understood that better than anyone. The first correction came without warning. No declaration, no mobilization visible on public channels. A single system went dark at the edge of Council space, a logistics hub belonging to the Kelt Combine. Ships vanished mid-translation. Beacons failed. Long-range sensors returned only static, as if the stars themselves had swallowed the system whole. At first, it was written off as a stellar anomaly. That explanation lasted 11 hours. Then the ships came back. Every vessel that had disappeared re-emerged simultaneously at the system's periphery. Engines cold, crews alive. Cargo holds empty. Data cores wiped clean except for a single recorded message embedded in every ship's log, written in dozens of languages. You entered a restricted pattern. This is your correction. No weapons had fired. No lives were taken. The Kelt economy collapsed in a day. Panic rippled outward. Insurance guilds froze coverage. Convoys rerouted through longer, costlier paths. Systems once considered safe found themselves isolated overnight, not by blockades, but by choice. No one wanted to risk stumbling into whatever invisible boundary humanity had drawn. The Council demanded answers. Humanity offered none. Instead, they released data. Historical records, carefully curated, spanning centuries. Each file detailed an incident where a species had interfered with human space, human colonies, or human interests. Piracy, exploitation, limited engagements. Every time, the response had been subtle. A failed harvest, a collapsed market, a rival empowered unexpectedly. Events written off as bad luck or internal failure. The final line of the release was identical across every file. Reaction delayed does not mean reaction denied. I watched delegates absorb the implication in real time. Humans had never forgotten. They had never forgiven. They had simply waited until response could be mistaken for coincidence. Military hawks pushed back. They argued that humanity's actions, while alarming, proved restraint. That no species had suffered direct casualties. That the humans were bluffing, leveraging fear instead of force. Then came the second correction. A joint fleet assembled near human space, officially conducting exercises. Unofficially, it was a test. Sensors active. Weapons powered. A show of unity meant to remind humanity that they were not alone in the universe. The fleet never crossed the border. Human systems flooded the region with gravitational noise. Not weapons, just distortions. Navigation collapsed. Formation coherence vanished. Ships drifted apart, unable to align their frames of reference. Time dilations spiked unpredictably. For some crews, minutes passed. For others, hours. Command lost all ability to coordinate. Human vessels remained at a distance, silent, observing. When the noise ceased, the fleet found itself scattered across light minutes of space, systems strained but intact. No damage. No losses. The message followed, identical in tone to the first. Do not probe a boundary you do not understand. The fleet disbanded in silence. Fear became doctrine. Species began drafting non-interference treaties that mentioned humans only indirectly. Research into human technology was abandoned or buried. Exploratory academies revised curricula to include a new classification, reactive civilizations, with humanity listed as the sole confirmed example. I was summoned privately by a splinter council, a coalition of smaller species seeking guidance. They wanted to know if coexistence was still possible. I told them the truth. Yes. But only if you stopped trying to measure them. Humans did not want territory. They did not want tribute. They wanted something far more dangerous. To be left alone. Every correction so far had reinforced that demand without escalation. A lesson written gently, but indelibly. Still, the galaxy is not known for learning quickly. Whispers spread of ancient human projects, weapons shelved because they were unnecessary. Of fleets designed not to conquer, but to erase causality itself. Rumors, perhaps. Or leaked truths meant to deter without demonstration. Then came the anomaly near Sol. A council probe, long lost, reappeared in deep space, transmitting continuously. Its sensors recorded impossible readings, folded dimensions, localized reality anchors, energy signatures matching theoretical limits no one had ever crossed. The probe's final transmission was clear. Human space is not defended, it said. It is curated. I understood then what the others still resisted. Corrections were not punishments. They were adjustments, precise and proportionate, applied to keep the larger system stable. Humanity was not acting in anger. It was acting in maintenance. And maintenance continues as long as stress persists. The third correction had not happened yet. But every species in the galaxy could feel it approaching, like pressure building along a fault line that had already decided where it would break. The third correction began with a silence that spread faster than any alarm. Across the galactic net, human communication nodes went dark simultaneously. Not severed, not destroyed, simply absent, as if they had never existed. Trade AIs stalled. Diplomatic channels echoed unanswered. Entire economic sectors that depended on human logistics froze mid-cycle. The galaxy panicked. Emergency summits convened without them. Militaries raised readiness levels. Analysts searched for patterns, threats, intentions. None emerged. Humanity did nothing, said nothing, showed nothing. Weeks passed. Then systems began to change. Hyperlanes subtly shifted. Distances recalculated themselves. Routes once optimal became inefficient, while forgotten paths grew faster, smoother, safer. Every change favored one outcome. Traffic flowed away from human-adjacent space. Not blocked, not forbidden. Simply inconvenient. Colonies at the edge of human territory felt it first. Trade slowed. Visitors dwindled. Markets adjusted. Within months, those regions became quiet backwaters, self-sufficient, isolated, peaceful. No protests came from humanity. No claims of ownership. They had not expanded. They had receded. The Council finally realized the truth too late. Humans were not punishing aggression. They were removing dependency. Centuries of galactic infrastructure had quietly incorporated human problem-solving, human mediation, human logistics. Conflicts cooled faster when humans were nearby. Disputes resolved with fewer losses. Supply chains stabilized. No one questioned it. Humans were useful, reliable, present. Now they were gone. Without them, old rivalries resurfaced. Minor border disputes escalated. Systems miscalculated responses without human pattern modelers smoothing probabilities. The galaxy grew sharper, harsher, more unstable. Panic replaced fear. Delegations begged for recontact. Apologies were issued retroactively for crimes long past. Reparations offered for incidents no human had publicly acknowledged. The silence remained absolute. I watched it unfold with a growing dread. This was not escalation. This was withdrawal. A universe left to experience the consequences of its own behavior. At last, a single message appeared across secure diplomatic frequencies, human encryption unmistakable, content brutally concise. Boundary conditions updated. Interference threshold lowered. Nothing else. The implications tore through every strategic model. Any future contact, any misstep, would trigger responses faster, harsher, less forgiving. The buffer humanity had once provided was gone. And still, no weapons fired. Then the outlier occurred. A minor species, desperate and failing, launched an incursion into an abandoned human system, believing silence meant weakness. They sought technology, leverage, survival. They found none of it. Their fleet vanished without trace. No debris, no signals, no survivors. Not even a correction message. Human channels remained dark. For the first time, casualty projections included a word no one had dared apply to humanity before. Predator. Not because they hunted, but because they decided when something no longer needed to exist. The galaxy finally understood the first rule had never been a threat. It had been a warning. And warnings, once ignored enough times, stopped being repeated. The absence changed me as well. I had believed humans reactive, predictable, once understood. Now I saw the deeper pattern. They did not seek dominance of space, but authorship of consequence. Every civilization eventually reveals what it protects. Humans protected choice, and they enforced it by ensuring others felt the weight of theirs. Archives surfaced quietly, records of extinct species that had once pushed too far, long before councils or treaties. Their ends were not dramatic. They simply faded, unremembered, systems repurposed by the universe itself. Humanity had learned that lesson early. The third correction was not aimed at the galaxy at large. It was aimed inward, at restraint, at proving they could walk away even when capable of ending everything. That restraint was the most terrifying weapon of all. Because one day, if they ever decided to return in full, it would mean they had concluded restraint was no longer sufficient. And if that day came, there would be no corrections, no lessons, no boundaries. Only an answer delivered at once, everywhere, final and absolute, to a galaxy that had been warned, instructed, and given every chance to step back. I feared that answer would not be loud. It would be quiet. And silence, I had learned, was how humans finished conversations. The galaxy held its breath, knowing the next sound might be the last it ever heard. Or never again. The fourth correction was never announced. No signal preceded it. No declaration followed. It unfolded the way extinction does, quietly, unevenly, and only obvious in hindsight. I was present when the realization finally crystallized. Not in the council chamber, which had long since lost relevance, but in an archival listening vault, surrounded by analysts, too exhausted to speak. We were mapping anomalies, disappearances, collapses, unexplained stabilizations, when the pattern aligned. Humanity had returned. Not physically, conceptually. Across the galaxy, certain behaviors now produced immediate, unavoidable consequences. Unauthorized militarization triggered cascading system failures. Aggressive expansion destabilized local stars. Predatory economies found their resource worlds turning inert, ecosystems collapsing into unusable states without any sign of sabotage. No signature. No culprit. Only outcome. The galaxy had become conditional. And humans were the conditions. They had embedded themselves into the fabric of causality itself, not as rulers, not as enforcers, but as authors of a rule set no one else could modify. Touch them, exploit them, threaten them, or emulate the worst parts of them. And reality itself pushed back. It was elegant, terrifying, irrevocable. The council disbanded quietly after that. No vote. No declaration. It simply stopped convening when members realized governance no longer mattered. Laws meant nothing if consequences arrived before intent could be debated. Civilizations adapted or vanished. Some learned restraint. Others fractured under the pressure of no longer being able to externalize their violence. A few collapsed entirely, their systems failing not from attack, but from the sudden absence of exploitable margins. Humans never reappeared to explain. That was the final cruelty. Or mercy. I accessed restricted pre-withdrawal human philosophy archives in my final days as an observer. There, buried beneath centuries of diplomatic language, was a simple principle repeated across cultures and eras. We don't want to rule the universe. We just want it to stop hurting us. Everything made sense then. The monsters they unleashed were not armies or machines or weapons hidden in dark matter vaults.